Welcome to the Oracle's Sanctum, a place where psychology meets spirituality, and where ancient wisdom guides modern seekers into the hidden depths of the human soul. If you are an empath, a truth seeker, or someone curious about the mysteries of Carl Jung's wisdom, then you have found the right sanctuary. Today, we begin a profound journey into the teachings of Jung, exploring the mysterious shadow self and its deep connection to the awakening of the empath. For centuries, mystics, philosophers, and psychologists have all agreed on one universal truth. Within every human being, there exists a hidden world, a realm made of emotions we suppress, desires we deny, and truths we are too afraid to face. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, gave this hidden realm a name, the shadow self. But what is this shadow really? Is it evil? Is it dangerous? Or is it simply the side of us that we do not wish to admit exists? To answer this, we must return to Jung's understanding of the human psyche. He believed that every individual is made up of layers: the ego, which is our conscious self, the persona, which is the mask we show to the world, and then, buried deep beneath, the shadow, the side of ourselves we prefer to hide. Picture yourself standing under the sunlight. Your body casts a shadow on the ground. That shadow is always there, following you, yet you cannot escape it. In the same way, your psychological shadow is always with you. It is a reflection of your being, but it represents the aspects of yourself you don't want others to see. Perhaps it is anger, perhaps jealousy, perhaps desires that society has taught you to suppress. The shadow is not darkness for the sake of darkness. It is the container of everything you have rejected within yourself. For empaths, this truth carries even greater weight. Empaths are individuals who feel deeply. They absorb emotions from those around them, often placing the needs of others above their own. Their sensitivity is a gift, but it also comes at a cost. In carrying the weight of others' pain, empaths often bury their own emotions. They become caretakers of the world's feelings, while their own shadow grows larger and more powerful in silence. Carl Jung warned us that the shadow cannot be destroyed. It cannot be erased. The more we try to ignore it, the stronger it becomes. Think about those moments when, under stress or exhaustion, something within you suddenly erupts. Harsh words slip out. Unexpected anger rises. A version of yourself you don't recognize takes control. That is the shadow revealing itself. It demands acknowledgement. It demands to be seen. For empaths, this is even more dangerous. Suppressing emotions for too long can turn their gift of sensitivity into exhaustion, depression, or resentment toward the very people they try to help. The empath's shadow is heavy because it carries not only their own unspoken feelings, but also the emotional weight they have absorbed from others. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." If we do not face our shadow, it will control us in ways we cannot see. We may believe we are choosing our life path, but in reality, our hidden fears and wounds are shaping our destiny from behind the curtain. So how do we begin to face the shadow? The first step is awareness. The shadow hides within our daily patterns. It shows itself in the things that trigger us, in the people we judge, and in the moments when we lose control. Often, what we dislike in others is a reflection of what we deny in ourselves. If you find yourself judging someone for being selfish, ask yourself, have I been ignoring my own needs? If arrogance angers you, ask yourself, am I afraid of stepping into my own power? This practice of reflection is the beginning of shadow work. It is not easy. It requires courage to admit that inside us are feelings we would rather not face. But the shadow is not our enemy. It is our teacher. It holds the pieces of us that, once integrated, bring strength, authenticity, and wholeness. For empaths, this integration means honoring their own emotions as much as they honor the emotions of others. It means realizing that sensitivity is not weakness, but a sacred gift, a gift that only blossoms fully when rooted in self-awareness. When we begin to understand the shadow, something remarkable happens inside us. At first it feels uncomfortable, almost threatening, because to face the hidden parts of ourselves is to admit that we are not as perfect or as pure as we might wish to appear. For empaths, this moment can be especially painful. They often live with an identity built on being the healer, the listener, the one who carries light for others. But then comes the realization, the same light that shines so brightly can cast the darkest shadow. The very sensitivity that makes an empath so compassionate can also make them vulnerable to denial, self-neglect, and even deep resentment. Carl Jung explained that what we do not face in ourselves does not disappear. Instead, it projects outward. We may think we dislike someone for their arrogance, but in truth it may be a part of us longing to be expressed, the part that wants to stand tall, to claim our own power, to stop hiding behind humility. An empath may avoid confrontation because they believe conflict is wrong, but deep inside, their shadow may carry unexpressed anger, frustration, and boundaries that were never defended. The more these truths are buried, the more the shadow grows. Restless Jung described this as the danger of unconsciousness. If we remain unaware of what is hiding in the shadow, then our lives become driven by forces we cannot see. Relationships become mirrors for our wounds. Friendships and romances turn into repeated patterns where we face the same pain again and again. For empaths, this cycle is even more dramatic because they unconsciously attract situations where their sensitivity is tested. They meet people who take advantage of their kindness, who drain their energy, who reflect back to them the parts of themselves they have ignored. But there is another side to the shadow, one that is not often spoken about. It is not only the container of our fears, but also the container of our power. Jung believed that the shadow holds every quality we have denied, including our hidden strengths. Perhaps as a child you were told to stay quiet, to be polite, to not take up space. Those commands created shame, and you buried your natural boldness into the shadow. Perhaps you were told that sensitivity is weakness, and so you buried your intuitive gifts as well. Now, as an empath, you feel the emotions of others but struggle to honor your own intuition. To reclaim the shadow is to reclaim these lost treasures. Facing the shadow is not about destroying it, but about integration. Integration means looking at the dark mirror and saying, yes, this too is me. It means accepting the anger you carry, not to unleash it recklessly, but to understand its purpose. Anger can protect boundaries. Fear can teach caution. Even jealousy can reveal our deepest desires. When an empath integrates these emotions, they stop being a victim of them. They become aware of the message behind the feeling, and they choose how to respond with wisdom. In the journey of an empath's awakening, the shadow becomes both a challenge and a guide. At first it whispers, then it shouts, and eventually it forces confrontation. The empath may feel drained, lost, or betrayed by those they trusted. They may ask, why do people hurt me when I only try to help them? The answer lies not in blaming others, but in turning inward. The shadow is pointing. To the unspoken truth, you have ignored yourself. You have carried the pain of the world while leaving your own wounds untreated. The awakening begins when the empath decides to stop running. Instead of pouring all their energy outward, they look inward with the same compassion they give others. They begin to sit with their own emotions, to listen to the inner child who was silenced, to comfort the parts of themselves that were left behind. This is shadow work. The act of sitting with discomfort, of writing down your hidden thoughts, of acknowledging your forbidden feelings, and of giving them a voice. For example, an empath may keep a journal and allow themselves to write freely. Without judgment, they may discover hidden sentences rising from the subconscious. I am tired of always being the strong one. I want to be cared for. I am angry at myself for saying yes when I wanted to say no. These words may surprise them, even scare them, but this is the shadow speaking. And in listening to it, healing begins. The shadow is also revealed in dreams. Jung was fascinated by dreams, believing that they are messages from the unconscious mind. For an empath, dreams may be intense, emotional, and symbolic. They may dream of being chased, of drowning, of standing in darkness, or of meeting mysterious figures. Jung taught that these figures are archetypes, symbols of the inner world. The chaser may represent a denied emotion. The water may represent overwhelming feelings. The darkness may be the shadow itself, demanding to be acknowledged. By writing down and reflecting on these dreams, the empath can uncover patterns. They may realize that the same themes return again and again, pointing to a wound that needs attention. The act of facing these dreams without fear becomes a practice of integration. Instead of waking up and pushing the dream away, the empath asks, "What are you trying to tell me?" As this process deepens, the empath begins to notice shifts in waking life. Relationships feel different. They no longer feel compelled to save everyone. They learn that saying no is not selfish, but sacred. They realize that their sensitivity is not meant to be a prison, but a gift that must first be offered inward, before it can be shared outward. The shadow, once an enemy, becomes a companion. The transformation is not sudden. It is a slow unraveling, like peeling layers of an onion. Each layer reveals another truth, another memory, another part of the self that was hidden. Sometimes it is painful. Old wounds may resurface. Childhood memories may return. But with each layer integrated, the empath grows stronger. They begin to feel whole, balanced, and alive. The awakening of the empath is not about abandoning sensitivity, but about anchoring it in self. It is about realizing that true compassion cannot exist without boundaries. It is about knowing that light is meaningless without darkness, and that to deny the shadow is to deny half of your soul. Jung's wisdom reminds us, the goal is not perfection, but wholeness. To be whole is to accept every part of yourself, even the parts you once rejected. As the empath continues the journey inward, there comes a point when the shadow no longer feels like an enemy, but begins to reveal itself as a guide. At first, this transformation can be confusing. How can something that once felt so frightening now feel like a teacher? The truth is that the shadow only becomes dangerous when it is ignored. When it is hidden, it acts out in unconscious ways. But when it is faced with honesty and compassion, it becomes a doorway to wisdom. Carl Jung often spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating all aspects of the self into a unified being. For the empath, individuation means no longer living only for others, but also honoring their own inner truth. It means balancing light and darkness, sensitivity and strength, compassion and self-protection. This is the heart of the empath's awakening, the realization that they are not here to dissolve into the world's suffering, but to stand as a whole being who can love deeply without losing themselves. At this stage of awakening, many empaths begin to experience a shift in perception. They no longer see the shadow as something to fear, but as a mirror that shows them the parts of themselves waiting to be claimed. They may notice that their relationships change. Toxic connections may fall away, while new, healthier bonds emerge. The empath learns to recognize manipulation and no longer feels guilty for stepping away from it. They realize that true love and compassion must flow in both directions, not only outward. The shadow also teaches the empath about power. For so long, sensitivity may have felt like weakness. They may have been told they were too emotional, too sensitive, or too soft. But within the shadow lies a hidden strength, the ability to endure pain, to see truths others cannot see, to connect deeply with the unseen dimensions of life. The empath begins to claim this power, not as arrogance, but as authenticity. They realize that power does not mean domination. It means alignment with one's true self. As this awareness deepens, the empath starts to embrace practices that honor both light and shadow. Meditation, journaling, creative expression, and even simple acts of self-care become sacred tools. They learn that silence is not emptiness, but nourishment. They discover that setting boundaries is not rejection, but an act of love, both for themselves and for others. In this integration, dreams may become more luminous. Where once they were filled with fear and darkness, now they begin to reveal symbols of guidance, light appearing in unexpected places, journeys through landscapes of beauty, encounters with figures of wisdom. Jung believed that these archetypal dreams are signs of progress, the psyche's way of affirming that healing is unfolding. For the empath, these dreams become reminders that they are not alone, that the unconscious itself is working with them, guiding them toward wholeness. The most profound realization, however, comes when the empath understands that the shadow is not separate from love. To awaken as an empath is not to escape darkness, but to expand love so wide that it can include the darkness too. This is perhaps the deepest lesson Jung offered, that we are not meant to cut ourselves in half, keeping only the good parts and discarding the rest. Wholeness means embracing the totality of who we are, the joy and the grief, the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability. This stage of awakening may bring a kind of peace that feels unfamiliar at first. The empath, once torn between the suffering of others and their own hidden pain, begins to feel steady. They no longer need to rescue everyone because they have rescued themselves. They no longer need external validation because they have learned to validate their own worth. And from this place of balance, their sensitivity becomes radiant rather than draining. They can walk into the world with open hearts without being consumed by it. And yet, the journey does not end here. The shadow is never finished. It will always evolve, always present new layers, always whisper in the background. But the empath no longer fears this. They welcome it as part of the cycle of growth. Just as night follows day, the shadow will always exist alongside the light. The awakening is not about eliminating the shadow, but about dancing with it, learning its rhythms, respecting its lessons, and allowing it to deepen one's humanity.